This is sleepy nirvana. Tonight, we sit with a teaching that has been misread for centuries. When Western scholars first encountered this idea, they translated it as emptiness or void, and assumed it meant nothingness. A bleak philosophy of absence. But the sages who used this word meant something else. The Sanskrit term is śūnyatā, and emptiness in the way the Buddha and the teachers who followed him used it doesn't mean that nothing exists. It means that things don't exist in the fixed, solid, independent way our minds insist they do. People have been sitting with this understanding for 2,500 years. The Buddha didn't ask anyone to adopt new beliefs. He showed them what they were already believing without knowing it. He showed them they were carrying weight that was never there. We'll turn this wisdom over slowly tonight. No rush. A quiet conversation about the nature of things. And maybe we set down something we never needed to carry. The Buddha began not with philosophy, but with a question about suffering and freedom. The Buddha asked a practical question. He wondered whether we might see through the grasping itself, not by fighting it, but by understanding where it comes from. His journey started with an observation. Life contains suffering. We spend our lives running from this truth or being crushed by it, chasing pleasure, fleeing pain. He had seen old age, sickness, and death, and he wanted to know if there was any freedom to be found. The word he used for this dissatisfaction was dukkha. We translate it as suffering, though that misses something. Dukkha includes grief, illness, loss, a quieter unease too. The low-grade dissatisfaction that sits beneath pleasant experiences. That feeling that what we have might slip away. You get the thing you were working toward, the promotion, the relationship, and there's a moment of satisfaction, then a new worry takes its place. The Buddha noticed that this dissatisfaction was bound up with grasping. We try to hold on to pleasure, push away pain, and maintain a solid sense of who we are. We grip our experiences like we're trying to keep water in our fists. And the tighter we squeeze, the more it slips through. Seeing through the grasping itself, understanding what it is and why it doesn't work, this was his path. He had lived as a prince with every pleasure available to him, and it hadn't brought peace. Then he tried the opposite, starving himself, denying every comfort. That didn't work either. So he sat down under a tree and decided not to get up until he understood. A man beneath a fig tree in the darkness before dawn. The air is cool. Night insects sing. He has nothing left but attention. A man sitting alone in the darkness, having given up on strategies. Attention watching the mind do what the mind does. The tradition tells us that he was assailed by Mara. Mara sent armies, sent temptations, sent doubts. Who do you think you are? What makes you think you can understand what no one else has understood? Get up. Go back to your life. This is pointless. But the Buddha didn't move. He touched the earth and said, I have as much right to sit here as anyone. The earth itself is my witness. And then, as the night deepened, the veil lifted. He saw that everything was flowing, arising, passing away, each moment touching the next, causes giving birth to effects, effects becoming new causes. He saw that what we call self is a flowing pattern, like a river that appears solid from a distance but is water moving. The river has no essence apart from the water, and even water is patterns of energy, empty of any solid core. He woke from a dream he didn't know he was having. The tradition tells us that in this moment he was freed from the suffering that comes from fighting against the way things are. He still had a body. He got hungry, tired, he grew old and died. But he no longer grasped for things to be other than they are. The Buddha didn't discover emptiness. He noticed what had always been true, like hearing the silence that was already there beneath the noise. The noticing was the liberation. Seeing was being released. The teaching of emptiness is sometimes presented as a philosophical position, an idea to be debated or rejected. But for the Buddha, it was how he freed himself from suffering. When we see that things lack the solid, permanent, independent existence we project onto them, we stop grasping. We stop carrying the weight of maintaining illusions. We stop exhausting ourselves trying to freeze the river, trying to stop the clouds. And when we stop, there is relief. The teaching of emptiness is sometimes called the lion's roar of Buddhism because it cuts through all our elaborate constructions about reality. It looks at everything and finds the same nature, nothing that stays still, nothing that holds its shape forever. The teaching is also gentle. It doesn't demand that we believe anything on faith. It asks only that we look at our experience, at the things before us. The Buddha offered his insight as an invitation to see for yourself. He was pointing at the moon, not asking you to worship his finger. He saw that things are empty, though the word can mislead us. Imagine you have believed all your life that a rainbow is a solid arch you could walk to and touch. You have seen it stretching across the sky, vivid against the clouds. You have assumed that if you traveled far enough, you could reach the place where it meets the ground. You could run your fingers through the colors and find a pot of gold. One day, you learn the rainbow is empty, that you could never reach it no matter how far you walked. You might think the colors you see are a lie, that the whole thing is an illusion. That's not what the teaching means. The rainbow is real. You can see it. You can photograph it. You can be moved by its beauty. A child points at it, and your own eyes still follow that arc of color against the clouds. What's empty is your idea of the rainbow, the notion that it's a solid thing, existing on its own in the sky, waiting to be found. The rainbow appears when sunlight refracts through water droplets at the right angle, reaching your eyes from where you happen to stand. Move 10 feet to the left, and you see a different rainbow. Move far enough, and it disappears. Without the water or the light, or you standing there to witness it, there is no rainbow at all. Conditions meet for a moment. The ancient teachers called this empty, because you had imagined a thing that wasn't there. The rainbow exists in relationship, a pattern held together by conditions that will soon change. Everything is like this: your body, your thoughts, the person you love. The old teachers had a word for this, svabhava, meaning existence that needs nothing else. When we look for this in a cup, a tree, a thought, ourselves, we cannot find it. What we examine depends on other things, on causes and conditions, on parts and the names we give them. Consider a cup. Where does it come from? The clay came from the earth. The earth came from geological processes stretching back millions of years. A potter shaped the clay, a potter who had parents and teachers, who ate food that gave them strength, who breathed air while they worked. Fire hardened the cup in a kiln that other hands had built. The word cup lets you recognize it as a cup rather than a small bowl. The function you assign to it, a vessel for drinking. Hand it to a person who has never seen one, and they might use it as a paperweight, a small drum. Remove any of these conditions, and the cup becomes a different thing. It may cease to be a cup at all. You can drink from it. It holds water. But it is not a self-contained thing. It is a meeting point of conditions, a pattern that holds for now. The Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once held up a sheet of paper and invited people to look at it. He asked what it was made of. The paper contains the tree it came from. The tree lives in the paper. But the tree needed sunlight to grow, so the sun lives there too. The tree needed rain, needed soil, which needed countless organisms. Each of them needed their own food sources, reaching back through time. The logger who cut the tree is in the paper. So are the logger's parents, the wheat that made the bread that fed the logger, the rain that grew the wheat, the farmer who planted it. You find the whole universe in a single sheet of paper. Take away the sun, and the paper could not exist. Take away the logger, the cloud. The paper is empty of a separate self. It is full of the universe. Thich Nhat Hanh called this interbeing, a word he invented to capture how things inter-are with everything else. Everything contains everything else. Empty of separateness, full of everything. Humans fall into two extremes. The middle way runs between them. The rainbow neither exists as a solid thing nor fails to exist at all. It exists through dependence and relation. You can see it. You can photograph it. It remains empty of the independent existence we project onto it. Eternalism says things have fixed, permanent, independent essences. We believe the self is solid, that things are what they appear to be, that reality has a stable foundation we can stand on. Nihilism swings the other way. Nothing exists. Everything is meaningless. Some people, when they first hear about emptiness, land here. If nothing has inherent existence, then nothing matters. It's all pointless. The rainbow is not nothing. The cup is not nothing. You are not nothing. Things exist. They don't exist the way we thought they did. This understanding didn't stay a simple insight. Thinkers refined it over centuries into a philosophical system that still shapes how millions of people see the world. 600 years after the Buddha's death, a philosopher appeared in India. His name was Nagarjuna, and some call him the second Buddha. We know little about his life. The legends say he was born a Brahmin, became a Buddhist monk, and spent his years teaching and writing in southern India. Some stories give him magical powers and a lifespan of several hundred years. His writings survived. One work, above all, the Mulamadhyamakakarika, the fundamental verses on the middle way, terse verses that have kept scholars occupied for 2,000 years. And yet the message is not complicated. Nagarjuna called his teaching the middle way. He was making clear what was already present in the Buddha's original teaching. His method is what makes him distinct. He asks you to examine your own beliefs until they reveal their own contradictions. No doctrine, no faith required. Nagarjuna was dismantling systems, his own included. He examined ordinary concepts until they dissolved in his hands. He built no elaborate arguments for his own position. He looked at what we assume and showed that it couldn't hold together. A seed becomes a tree. We say the seed causes the tree. Look more closely. Where does the seed end and the tree begin? At what moment does cause become effect? When the first root emerges? When the stem breaks the soil? When the first leaf unfolds? You won't find the boundary. The same is true where a river meets the sea. You can point to the general area, but the closer you look, the distinction blurs. Fresh water mixes with salt. Currents swirl together. The boundary shifts with every tide. Nagarjuna pointed to what we can check for ourselves. Our concepts are rough sketches, not exact maps of reality. We draw lines where nature shows none. We invent categories and then forget we invented them. Any concept dissolves when you look at it long enough. The moving object is never quite here or there. The present moment has no measurable length. This body keeps changing. So does this mind. No single part holds the real you. Seeds do become trees. Nagarjuna never denied that. He was showing that our idea of how this happens resembles a sketch more than a photograph. You can use a map to find your way through a city, but you cannot live in the map. He wanted to loosen the grip of our ideas about the world. When you hold concepts loosely, you can use them without being trapped by them. The word cup helps us communicate, but cupness is not some real essence floating out there in the universe. Nagarjuna identified the two dangerous extremes we mentioned earlier. Eternalism says things have fixed, permanent essences that never change. Nihilism says nothing exists and nothing matters. These look like opposite errors, yet they share the same root. Both assume existence must be all or nothing. Things either exist with solid permanence or they vanish into meaninglessness. Nagarjuna's middle way refuses this false choice. Things exist dependently. They are real, though not solid in the way we tend to imagine. The middle way is not a compromise between two positions. It makes both positions unnecessary. When we understand that things are empty of inherent existence while still existing conventionally, we stop clenching. No need to defend the solidity of things. No need to despair at their emptiness. Emptiness is not absence. We can hold our experience lightly, appreciate what arises without grasping, and release what passes without grief. Freedom comes not from grasping harder, but from seeing clearly. Nagarjuna's philosophy might seem abstract, yet it rests on something the Buddha himself established, holding two kinds of truth at once. Buddhist teaching speaks of two truths, a way of understanding emptiness as it touches ordinary life. Conventional truth is how things appear. There are cups and tables, people and places, causes and effects. The sun rises, the coffee cools. You have a name and a history and preferences and plans. This level is real enough. It is how we function and get through our days. Ultimate truth recognizes that all these apparent things lack inherent existence. They are empty. The cup, the table, you, all present, but without the solid permanence we imagine them to have. The two truths describe the same reality from different angles. Not separate worlds, but one world seen two ways. Consider the rainbow. You can see it, point to it, photograph it, write poems about it. Asked whether there is a rainbow, you would say yes. Yet no thing called rainbow exists. Light bends through water at a certain angle, and the eye registers color and arc. Asked whether the rainbow exists on its own, apart from light and water and your eye, you would say no. Both answers are true. The same sky holds them. Confusion often enters at this point. Hearing about emptiness, we conclude that the everyday world is fake, that cups and feelings are dreams to be dismissed, that the ultimate is more real, and the conventional mere illusion. Nagarjuna addressed this. Without relying on conventional reality, no one can teach what lies beyond it. Words pointing to emptiness are themselves conventional designations. Teacher and student and teaching are all conventional. You cannot step outside of appearances to reach their deeper nature. You see through them while standing within them. Understanding emptiness brings liberation. When we take appearances as the final word, we remain trapped in grasping and aversion. We believe the self is solid and spend our lives defending it. We believe pleasure is substantial and wear ourselves out chasing it. We despair because we think our suffering will last forever. We need the conventional to function, eating breakfast, having conversations, practicing meditation, hearing these words right now. We need the ultimate to be free. The awakened person still calls a cup a cup. A name still receives an answer. Hunger still leads to eating. All of it held lightly, its nature understood. The game continues, and the playing becomes transparent. The two truths offer a way to live, not a philosophical puzzle. In meditation, we can touch ultimate truth. The mind settles. Thoughts thin out. For a moment, we glimpse the open nature of experience. No solid self to be found. no boundary between inside and outside, just awareness. In daily life, conventional truth returns. Making dinner, talking to friends, doing our work. The self seems to reappear. The world seems solid again. The usual concerns reassert themselves. Bring the lightness of ultimate truth into your ordinary activities. When you remember that the traffic jam is empty of inherent existence, that the difficult colleague is empty, that the anxious thought is empty, your relationship to them changes. The situation stays the same. The grip loosens. The drama deflates. You still drive carefully and speak kindly. You address your concerns. But the suffering of believing these things are permanent falls away. The weight of taking it all so personally lifts. Emptiness doesn't ask us to escape anywhere. It invites us to live with more space. The teaching of emptiness extends to cups and tables, to rainbows, and to the self we believe ourselves to be. We hold no belief more tightly than the belief in a separate self. We wake up each morning with the sense that I am here, the one who went to sleep last night, the one who existed yesterday and will exist tomorrow. This self feels like the center of experience, the one who thinks, who chooses, who suffers and enjoys. We spend so much energy protecting this self. We want people to think well of us because that makes the self feel real. We fear failure because that shrinks it. We cling to our opinions because they give it shape. And we resist change because change unsettles it. The Buddha's most radical teaching was that this self we defend cannot be found when we look for it. He was offering an invitation. Look for this self you are so sure exists. The Buddha broke apart what we call self into 5 aggregates. 5 heaps we mistake for one solid thing. Form comes first, the body, the weight of sitting, air filling the lungs. Then sensation. Each experience carries a feeling. Warmth of sunlight feels pleasant. A headache feels unpleasant. The pressure of clothes against skin may barely register at all. Perception follows. The mind recognizes and sorts. That's a tree. That's my friend's voice. It labels and makes sense of the stream. Mental formations make up the 4th. Thoughts and emotions. The commentary that runs through our days. And consciousness. Awareness itself. The knowing that experience is happening. The presence behind your eyes in this moment. The Buddha looked at these 5 and found no self hiding among them. The body changes, cells replace themselves over years. The body you have now is not the one that learned to walk, not the one that held a loved one close. It ages and transforms. One day it stops working. Which body would be the self? Sensations come and go. A good meal satisfies for a few hours. The sting of a stubbed toe fades by morning. You can't hold a wave in your hands. Perceptions shift with context, with mood, attention. The same face looks different when you're in love than when you're angry. The same music sounds different when you're sad. Perceptions are interpretations and they move. Thoughts and emotions never settle. Moods shift Intentions change. Habits form and dissolve. The thought you're having now, already gone. And consciousness is not a stable thing. Seeing differs from hearing. Deep sleep differs from reading these words. Nothing stays still long enough to be called a self. Any aggregate you examine reveals only change. You can search for a self that owns them, one that stands behind them while they shift. You won't find it. The Pali word for this is anatta, non-self. You exist, but not the way you imagine. Experience unfolds without an experiencer standing apart from it. The river is real, but there is no river apart from the water flowing. Hearing about non-self for the first time often stirs fear. We assume we will disappear. The fear misses the point. The self we dread losing never existed as we imagined. What we never had, we cannot lose. We lose only the burden of maintaining an illusion. Think of how much energy goes into protecting the ego, defending against criticism, seeking praise, building stories about who we are, then fighting anyone who contradicts them. When we see through the illusion of a solid self, this energy is freed. Experience goes on, the body remains, thoughts and feelings arise. But the tight grip of me and mine loosens, and with it loosens the suffering that comes from defending a mirage. You don't become nothing, you become lighter. Modern studies on ego dissolution describe what Zen masters wrote about centuries ago. The perception of a solid, unchanging self can be seen through in deep meditation. Those who experience this don't report terror or annihilation. They report freedom and a sense of connection they hadn't felt before. Barriers dissolve that they never knew they held in place. The self you were afraid to lose was a thought, a habit of mind. Life continues underneath it, with less weight. Knowing the self is empty differs from living that way. You can hold the idea for years without it changing anything, or you can let it shape how you move through each day. Attachment is what the Buddha named as the root. In Pali, the word is upadana. It means grasping, clinging. Attachment is not the same as love. You can love your children without demanding they become who you imagined. You can care about your work without needing it to prove your worth. Attachment is the tight grip that says, "This must stay. This must be mine forever." We grasp at pleasant experiences and want them to continue. The vacation should never end. The romance should feel like this always. We cling to our self-image and want to be seen as competent. We suffer whenever reality contradicts these pictures we hold. Our beliefs become possessions too. My political views are correct. My understanding of the world is the right one. And people, we want them to remain as we know them, to stay. We value these things, and there is nothing wrong with that. But we hold them as if they were solid and permanent, when everything in nature tells us they are not. Attachment is the attempt to freeze the river. It never works, and the attempt itself is exhausting. Everything is empty. Nothing has the solid permanence we project onto it. Attachment fights against reality. We grip things that cannot be gripped. We try to make permanent what is impermanent by nature. We suffer in proportion to how tightly we grip. We're working against the grain of how things are. Letting go is often misunderstood. People hear non-attachment and imagine someone who doesn't care, drifting through life untouched by anything. But letting go means releasing our grip. The things remain. The clutching stops. Love a person while releasing the demand that they never change or disappoint you. You may love them more this way because you're not burdening the relationship with impossible expectations. A beautiful sunset doesn't need to last forever for you to enjoy it. You enjoy it more when you're not mourning its passing while it's still happening. Care about your work without needing it to make you feel permanently secure or important. Let that anxiety about self-image fall away. Letting go is aligning with reality. Letting go is not loss. You are never holding what you thought you were holding. When we see emptiness, letting go becomes natural. No gritting of teeth, no forcing ourselves to release, just relaxing into what's already true. The grip loosens because we see there was nothing to grip. Lama Zopa Rinpoche taught that realizing emptiness is the antidote to the ignorance beneath all suffering. We project inherent existence onto things that have none. We see solid selves where there are only flowing processes, grasping at permanence in a world of change. When we see through this confusion, attachment dissolves. We're no longer confused about what we're desiring. The flip side of emptiness is impermanence. Everything changes. We usually experience this as loss. The flower wilts, the friend moves away. But impermanence is also the source of all possibility. If things had fixed existence, nothing could ever transform. Growth would be impossible. Learning, awakening, none of it could happen. The emptiness that means you can't hold on to the good also means you're never trapped by the bad. Emptiness offers freedom from the prison of our demands. Reality offers itself fresh in each moment. The past doesn't cling to it. Expectations don't weigh it down. To meet this freshness is to be alive in a way that grasping never allows. The wisdom of emptiness did not remain only in India. As it traveled to China, it met another ancient tradition, pointing to something quite similar. Long before Buddhism arrived in China, Taoist sages had been contemplating what they called Wu, the fertile void. The Tao Te Ching, attributed to the legendary sage Lao Tzu, opens with a warning. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Rather than explaining Wu, Lao Tzu pointed to it through images. 30 spokes share the wheel's hub. The center hole makes it useful. Picture a wooden wheel on an ancient cart. The spokes radiate outward, but the wheel turns on the hollow at its center. The emptiness fits the axle. Shape clay into a vessel. The space within makes it useful. The potter works the clay, shaping walls and curves. The emptiness inside, that's what holds the water. cut doors and windows for a room. The openings make it useful. You build walls to make a room, but you walk through the door. Light enters through the windows. The gaps give the room its life. Lao Tzu shows you the wheel, the vessel, the room, and he lets you see for yourself. A wheel finds its usefulness not in the spokes, but in the emptiness they surround. A cup serves us not through the clay, but through the space the clay holds. Wu is the space from which all things arise. When Buddhism came to China, translators faced a challenge. Rendering Sanskrit concepts in Chinese required reaching for Taoist terms. They used Wu to translate śūnyatā. Taoist readers understood Buddhist emptiness through their own framework. Buddhist ideas were transformed by their new linguistic home. The two traditions mingled. They merged here, misread each other there. They point beyond what concepts can hold. Our usual way of seeing the world is a kind of overlay, a construction we mistake for reality. Both traditions offer practices for seeing through this construction. Buddhist emptiness comes back to dependent origination. Things arise from conditions. Nothing exists on its own. Taoist emptiness speaks of the fertile void, where forms emerge and dissolve again. Two fingers pointing at the same moon. Taoism offers a practical wisdom about emptiness that sits well alongside the Buddhist view. The Taoist sage does not try to fill every moment with activity. She gives things space to unfold. She does not force her will on the natural flow of events. Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, does not mean doing nothing. It means acting without strain, swimming with the current, responding to what is happening instead of fighting for what you think should happen. And this asks that we loosen our grip. We need some emptiness in us, some space that isn't filled with agenda and anxiety. The sage is like water, which benefits all things without competing. Water flows to the low places that others avoid. It wears away stone over centuries, yielding through patience. It takes the shape of whatever contains it while remaining itself. Emptiness here becomes a way of being rather than an idea to grasp. When we are empty of fixed agendas, we can respond to what is needed. Letting go of rigid self-concern, we can be present for others. And releasing the need to be right, we can learn. Emptiness is what's left when we stop stuffing every corner with noise. When Buddhist and Taoist traditions met, they gave birth to Chan in China. In Japan, it became Zen, a tradition that approaches emptiness not through philosophy, but through direct experience. Zen Buddhism is famous for distrusting words and concepts. The tradition speaks of a special transmission outside the scriptures, not depending on words and letters pointing straight at the mind. Many Zen masters spent decades with texts. They became learned scholars, and they knew that study alone would never be enough. You can read 1,000 books about emptiness and still not taste it. You can explain the philosophy with precision and remain trapped in your concepts. You can win every argument about non-self while defending your ego all day long. Zen tries to let emptiness be recognized without anything getting in the way. Meditation offers one path. Koans offer another. A word or gesture from a teacher arriving at the right moment can do what years of reading cannot. The finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. Zen asks you to see the moon for yourself. This directness can seem abrupt to those used to philosophical elaboration. It can even seem rude. A student asks a question about Buddha nature, and the master responds by hitting them with a stick. A monk inquires about the meaning of Zen, and the master says, "Have you eaten your rice? Then wash your bowl." What looks like rudeness is something else. The student drowning in concepts could look instead. The one discussing the taste of water could drink. Zen koans are paradoxical questions and stories meant to short-circuit the thinking mind. What is the sound of one hand clapping? What was your face before your parents were born? Does a dog have Buddha nature? Logic can't touch these. What is the sound of one hand clapping? The mind reaches and grasps. It grows frustrated. The student offers answer after answer, and the teacher rejects them all. If you persist long enough, the grip loosens. The mind stops trying to figure it out. In that giving up, you start to see differently. The cup, before we label it cup. The sound, before we call it bird or traffic. This moment, before any judgment touches it. The koan has no answer waiting to be found. It has a barrier to be passed through. When you pass through, emptiness reveals itself. You know it the way you know salt on your tongue. One of the most famous Zen sayings goes like this: before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Emptiness doesn't carry us somewhere else. We were looking elsewhere all along, and emptiness shows us what we missed. The Zen master Zhaozhou was asked, "What is the way?" He answered, "Ordinary mind is the way." This ordinary mind isn't our usual distracted mind, always grasping at thoughts. It's the mind before we add anything. The mind that knows what is happening without commentary, without trying to change things. Emptiness isn't an extraordinary state we must achieve. We recognize it as the ordinary nature of things. You don't need to go anywhere or become anyone. See what is already the case. The fourth aggregate is mental formations, thoughts and emotions, intentions and habits. The active aspect of mind. We laid the grasping for achievement over a completeness that never asked for improvement. Zen expresses the wisdom of emptiness plainly. This, as it is whole. The Heart Sutra calls emptiness profound. It is one of Buddhism's most beloved texts. Let's listen to what this ancient scripture says. The Heart Sutra teaches emptiness in just a few hundred words. Monks across Asia have chanted these lines for centuries. At dawn in mountain monasteries, at dusk in village temples, beside the dying. Countless hands have copied these words, sat with them in silence, held them close through the years. The sutra takes the form of a dialogue. The bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara reveals the nature of emptiness to the monk Shariputra. Compassion speaks to wisdom, and the teaching arrives gently. The sutra's most famous lines declare, "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form." 4 phrases and 2 truths folded into each other. Form is emptiness. What we see lacks inherent existence. The cup is empty. The mountain is empty. This body, listening now, is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not some void apart from the world, not a blank space behind appearances. Emptiness shows up as the cup, the mountain, the body. It takes shape, has color, makes sound. Form is not other than emptiness. You don't have to look past form to find emptiness. The form itself is empty. The cup's emptiness is not hidden inside the cup. It's the cup. Emptiness is not other than form. Emptiness is not somewhere else, waiting to be discovered. It's right here, in every form, in this appearance before you now. The sutra does not say form is illusion. It says form is emptiness. The cup is empty, and the emptiness is cup-shaped. Then, the Heart Sutra negates nearly every category of Buddhist teaching. No eyes, no ears, no nose or tongue, no body or mind. No suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation, no path. No wisdom, no attainment. Buddhism teaches the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. It teaches the attainment of wisdom, the end of suffering, the reaching of enlightenment. And here the sutra negates all of it. The sutra is pointing to the ultimate truth. From the standpoint of emptiness, even these teachings are empty. Understanding suffering frees you from it. The path reaches the goal. But these teachings are not ultimate realities to grasp. They are tools. You cross the water, then leave the boat behind. The raft that carries you across the river need not ride on your back forever. When you reach the other shore, you set it down. Even the teaching of emptiness is not for clinging to. Make emptiness into a new doctrine, a new identity to defend, and you've missed the point. The Heart Sutra concludes with a mantra, a sacred phrase, Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi, svaha. A common translation reads, Gone, gone, gone beyond, gone all the way beyond, awakening, so be it. The mantra does not explain emptiness. It celebrates it. Gone beyond suggests a crossing over. Confusion dissolves. What remains is clear. But the sutra has told us there is no attainment. So what is this going beyond? We were never on this side to begin with. The boundary we thought we needed to cross was empty too. What you looked for was never missing. You don't go from here to there. You see that here and there were always empty. The mantra is often chanted in the original Sanskrit. The chanting itself becomes a practice of letting go. The sound rises and the breath comes and goes. For a moment, the thinking mind rests. The Heart Sutra doesn't end with a conclusion to be understood. It ends with an invitation to be lived. This wisdom doesn't belong only in books or meditation halls. Let it walk with you through ordinary days, through your encounters with others. Some fear that seeing through the self leads to coldness, to indifference. But this gets emptiness backwards. Emptiness doesn't erase meaning. Nothing stands alone. When the illusion of a separate self dissolves, connection remains. The walls we thought protected us were prisons. When they fall, we find we were never alone. The suffering of others touches our own heart. Their joy moves through us. The hard boundary between me and you was a habit of mind we mistook for truth. Thich Nhat Hanh called this interbeing. If I am not separate from you, your pain reaches me. Your happiness does too. Compassion arises from this recognition. It comes from a heart that knows no edges. In Mahayana Buddhism, the ideal is the bodhisattva, one who seeks awakening not for themselves alone, but for all beings. If there is no self, who seeks awakening? If beings are empty, who is to be saved? The bodhisattva holds both truths. In the everyday world, beings suffer. A child is hungry. A friend is grieving. These experiences ask for response. And yet no one suffers. Self and helper, both empty. The bodhisattva acts from this deeper truth while engaging with the world as it appears. Emptiness doesn't stop compassion from flowing. The boundary dissolves, and still they respond when suffering meets them. Compassion flows anyway. Action without the actor, helping without keeping score. No one building merit, no one congratulating themselves. This compassion is lighter than ego-based helping. When we help from ego, we want recognition. We want to feel generous, to protect our self-image. We exhaust ourselves. Compassion that flows from emptiness needs nothing in return. When we love from a sense of solid self, our love is mixed with need and fear, with the desire to possess. We love because we want from it. We grasp and try to control what cannot be controlled. And so we suffer. When we see through the solid self, love becomes possible without these additions. Love without conditions, present, because it's not worried about tomorrow, not grasping at yesterday. A parent watching their child happy for no reason. A friend who never counts favors. Emptiness doesn't diminish love. It clears away the grasping that distorts it. This love stays more present. We're not lost in what hasn't happened or caught in what already did. We can be here now with the one we love. See them as they are today. Meet them fresh, without the weight of old stories we've been carrying. The mind can understand emptiness well enough, but to live it asks more of us, and so we practice. Buddhist tradition speaks of two kinds of understanding, knowing about and knowing. Knowing about emptiness means you can explain it, argue for it, recognize it when you hear it taught. Books help. Lectures help. Conversations with friends who share your curiosity. Over time, you build a clear picture of what emptiness means. You have a framework now, a way of orienting yourself to your experience. But knowing about a thing is not the same as knowing it. Direct realization is knowing emptiness, seeing it for yourself in your own experience. You looked and you saw. The difference is like reading about the taste of honey compared to tasting honey. You can describe sweetness, the chemistry, how the tongue responds, but until you put honey on your tongue, you don't know sweetness. The two kinds of understanding complete each other. Knowing about emptiness without tasting it is like reading about water while you're parched. You've memorized the chemistry. You know why bodies need it. But the knowledge doesn't quench your thirst. And realization without understanding can slip away. You might glimpse emptiness for a moment. The self drops away. Everything opens. But without any framework, the experience fades. You're not sure what happened or how to find your way back. So the great teachers say, study and practice together. Let learning and meditation walk side by side. The map is not the territory, but without a map, you may wander in circles. Analytical meditation examines phenomena to see if they have any inherent existence. You look for the self. You search the body, the thoughts, the awareness. You look for the cup. You search the clay, the shape. You keep looking, and you don't find the solid thing you expected. Resting meditation lets the mind settle until it recognizes its own empty nature. You sit, you breathe, thoughts arise and pass away. You don't chase them or push them away. Let them come and go like clouds. After a while, you notice the thoughts have no substance. They appear and fade. The mind that knows them is also empty, aware, but not a thing you can grasp. Some practices use inquiry. You ask yourself what is aware right now. You ask whether the one who is looking can be found. You turn attention back on itself, and you find openness, no one there. A teacher might offer pointing out instructions, directing your attention to what is present. Look at the awareness in which all experience appears. See whether it has a beginning or an end. You are not creating emptiness through meditation. You are recognizing what was always the case. Sometimes this recognition arrives in glimpses. The fog lifts for a moment. These glimpses may deepen over time and grow stable. Or it may arrive all at once. You realize you are never standing on anything solid to begin with. The drama of the experience matters little. A quiet shift in understanding can change everything. Grasping loosens. Suffering eases. Understanding that never leaves the cushion remains unfinished. We test our grasp of emptiness by how we live, by holding things more loosely and meeting others with warmth. Bring this recognition into ordinary moments. When anger arises, see its empty nature. It depends on conditions. Something triggered it. You are already in a certain mood. It has no solid core. Sensations arise in the body. Thoughts move through the mind, and it will pass. No anger lasts forever. Fear, when it comes, is a pattern of sensation and thought, not solid, not who you are. The racing heart passes. The tight chest loosens, not self. Joy, too, can be enjoyed without grasping. Knowing it will change, but letting that knowledge deepen your appreciation rather than diminish it. Practice brings ordinary experience into the light of understanding. This becomes more natural with time. The wisdom of emptiness becomes less something you know and more something you are. We're nearing the close of tonight's contemplation. What does all of this mean for you in this moment? The world tells us we are not enough, not smart enough, never accomplished enough. This message carves out a hollow place at our center. We try to fill it with achievements, new experiences. We keep reaching for whatever might make us whole. But the hollow stays. You meet one goal and another appears beyond it. You satisfy one desire, and fresh wanting is born. The wisdom of emptiness whispers a different truth. The self that feels so incomplete has no fixed edges. The whole isn't real. We built it from old habits, all this time seeking what we already are. We can still grow and learn, but from wholeness. The ancient teachers didn't add anything new to their students. They cleared away what was never needed. At last, the weight carried for no reason gets set down. When you strive from lack, it exhausts you and never satisfies. You reach the goal, then another appears. You fix one flaw, another shows itself. The lack never fills because it was never real. When you act from wholeness, movement becomes natural. You do what needs doing. You respond to the moment. Growth happens on its own. You relax your grasping for more. Emptiness isn't a puzzle to solve. You rest in it. When the mind stops grasping, what remains is peace. This peace has nothing to do with circumstances or getting what you want. The nature of mind itself, undisturbed. You don't need to achieve peace. You only need to stop disturbing it. As you rest tonight, allow these teachings to settle like sediment in still water. They are empty too. The words matter less than the space they point to, the silence beneath the speaking. You are already complete. The wisdom of emptiness asks nothing of your belief. It invites you to look. Look at your experience right now. You won't find a solid self anywhere. Sensations come and go. That you, which feels so certain, it keeps slipping through your fingers when you try to find it. The objects around you aren't separate things standing alone. They're conditions meeting for a while. Where does the air end and your lungs begin? There's no clear line. When you examine your suffering, it starts to thin out. Turn toward the worry and watch it fade. The Buddha didn't ask for belief. He asked you to look for yourself. The teachers who came after him did the same. You don't have to accept anything on faith. Just look with care, with honesty, at what's here. And if you look, you might find what the sages found. Emptiness liberates. It warms you. It holds everything and grasps at nothing. You are already enough. Enough to rest tonight. Enough to be. Tonight, we've wandered through 25 centuries of wisdom. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree. Nagarjuna sharpened his logic until it cut through every fixed idea. Taoist sages rested in stillness, while Zen masters refused to explain. They could only show. The heart sutra negated everything, and compassion poured forth anyway. All these paths reached the same place. Nothing solid was ever there to begin with. The self keeps shifting. When you see through appearances, you find yourself free. Emptiness isn't a philosophy to defend. You can recognize it yourself. It asks nothing new, only that you see through what you've always believed. The cup is still a cup. The breath still moves. The stars still shine. But something has loosened. Something has lifted. Tonight, as you rest, you don't need to hold on to anything we've talked about. The words will fade. The concepts will blur. That's how it should be. What stays is a quiet shift in how you hold your experience. A little more ease. Emptiness takes nothing from you. It brings you back to the simplest thing, being here, breathing. You are whole. You are home. The night can hold you now. The breath breathes itself. Thoughts come and go like sounds in the dark, rising from silence, returning to it. Until next time, from Sleepy Nirvana.